You know what's funny? They thought I didn't understand a single word they were saying, while they laughed at me across the dinner table. Every insult, every joke at my expense, they thought it was all flying right over my head. But I sat there, quiet, smiling, letting them think I was clueless. By the time dessert was served, I made sure every single one of them knew the truth. I understood everything. That night wasn't just the end of a dinner, it was the end of my relationship. I walked into that house thinking I was about to make a good impression on the people my girlfriend cared about most. I walked out knowing I would never see her the same way again. It's strange how one evening can flip your world upside down. One moment, you're trying your best to be polite, to fit in, to show respect, and the next, you're realizing you're just the punchline to someone else's private joke. And I can tell you this, when the people laughing are the same ones you were planning to call family someday. It cuts deeper than anything you expect. But I didn't yell, I didn't cause a scene. I waited, and then I delivered my answer in a way they'll never forget. What happened at that table is burned into my memory. The warmth of the candles, the clinking of silverware, the smell of roasted chicken in the air. All of it wrapped around words I wasn't supposed to understand. But I did, and it changed everything. My name's Ethan Miller. I'm 32 years old, living in Charlotte, North Carolina. 3 years before that dinner, my life was steady, maybe even a little predictable. I had just landed an entry-level position at a mid-sized pharmaceutical company downtown. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, gave me decent health insurance, and, most importantly, had room for growth. I liked the idea of working my way up, proving myself one step at a time. Most weekdays looked the same. Up at 6:30 a.m., coffee in a travel mug, a 20-minute drive through morning traffic, and a day filled with paperwork, shipping logs, and basic reporting. I'd hit the gym 3 times a week, grab dinner with friends on Fridays, and spend Sundays grilling burgers in the backyard. It was a simple, quiet life, and I was okay with that. That's when Sophia walked into it. She worked for a logistics company that handled inter-branch deliveries for us. One Tuesday afternoon, she came through our office doors with a small padded envelope for my supervisor. He wasn't around, so I signed for it. She had this all business look about her, focused, quick, ready to get back on the road. But for some reason, I couldn't help trying to make her laugh. I joked about how we were probably the most exciting stop on her route, so she should really savor the moment. It wasn't a great joke, but she smiled, and that stuck with me. Over the next few weeks, Sophia's deliveries became more than just drop-offs. She'd linger for a couple of minutes, asking about work, then about me. She had this warm, grounded way of talking that made you feel like you'd known her for years. Before I knew it, I was looking forward to her visits. One afternoon, as she was heading for the door, I asked, "So, what's the plan for tonight?" expecting her to say she had dinner with friends. Instead, she said, "Sleep, just sleep," and we both laughed. Something about the way she said it broke the last bit of hesitation I had. I invited her to a quiet new restaurant a friend had recommended. She hesitated for a second, then nodded and gave me her number. That night, over warm lighting and good food, we talked for hours about music, travel, family, even silly little things that somehow felt important. When we left, I knew I wanted to see her again. Soon, casual dinners turned into weekend road trips, lazy Sundays, and long conversations that stretched into the night. Back then, I really believed I had found someone special. And for the first 3 years, I thought I was right. For the first 3 years, Sophia and I found a rhythm that worked. It wasn't the kind of whirlwind romance you see in movies, but it was steady, comfortable, and, at least I thought, mutually respectful. We'd take weekend drives up to the Blue Ridge Mountains, binge-watch crime documentaries on rainy nights, and fall asleep talking about everything from childhood memories to our plans for the future. Sure, we had small disagreements now and then, about laundry, about where to eat, the usual couple stuff, but they never felt like deal breakers. I thought we had a strong foundation, but after her younger sister got married, I noticed something shift. At first, it was just little comments, half jokes about when it would be our turn. playful nudges during family gatherings when a cousin asked about weddings. I'd laugh it off, thinking it was just her teasing. But slowly, those jokes started carrying weight. One evening, over takeout pizza in my apartment, Sophia brought it up again. "You know, my parents have been asking about us a lot," she said, swirling her wine glass. "In my family, people don't date for years without moving forward." I looked at her, trying to choose my words carefully. "I get that," I said. "I really do. But you know I'm working toward that promotion. Once I have it, I'll be in a better position to give you the wedding you deserve." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm just saying, they're old-fashioned, and they're starting to wonder if you're serious." It was the first time I felt a knot in my stomach when we talked about the future. I respected her family's traditions, but I wasn't about to rush into marriage before I was financially ready. I thought she understood. Still, something about that conversation stayed with me. It was small, just a tiny crack in the picture I had of us, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the crack might grow. After that conversation, I told myself not to overthink it. Relationships go through phases, and maybe this was just one of them. But over the next few months, I started noticing things that didn't sit right. Sophia began answering my texts hours later, sometimes not at all until the next morning. Phone calls that used to last 40 minutes were now 5-minute check-ins. Cut short with, "I'm busy, I'll call you later." When we were together, she seemed distracted, scrolling through her phone or sending messages instead of looking me in the eye. At first, I chalked it up to stress. Her job had long hours, and I knew family expectations were weighing on her. But the small changes began to stack up, like bricks building a wall between us. One Friday night, we were supposed to meet for dinner at a little Italian place we both liked. I got there on time, even ordered a bottle of the wine we shared on our first date. She showed up 40 minutes late. No apology, just a quick kiss on the cheek and a comment about how traffic was insane. The rest of the meal, she kept glancing at her phone, smiling at texts she wouldn't explain. The next week, she canceled plans twice. Once because she needed a night in, and once because her cousin invited her to a family gathering. I didn't push back, but I couldn't ignore the coldness creeping in. Then, one Thursday evening, she sent me a short text. "Are you free this weekend? My parents want to meet you." I stared at my phone for a moment. My first thought was, why now? We'd been together for years, and she'd never mentioned her parents wanting to meet me. Part of me felt unprepared, maybe even unwelcome. I almost typed out an excuse, something about work or being out of town. But before I could hit send, another text popped up. "Really? What could possibly be more important than meeting my parents?" Her words hit like a challenge. I knew if I refused, it would only create more distance. So I swallowed my hesitation and replied, "Okay, I'll be there." Her response came quick. "Great. They're going to love you." The way she said it, so certain, so casual, didn't erase my unease. In fact, it made me wonder what I was walking into. Once I'd said yes, there was no turning back. I decided if I was going to meet Sophia's parents, I'd show up prepared. First impressions matter, especially when the family is traditional, like hers. Saturday evening came faster than I expected. That morning, I drove to a small boutique wine shop and picked out a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon the owner swore would pair well with just about anything. I laid out my clothes the night before: dark jeans, a crisp white shirt, a navy blazer, and polished brown leather shoes. It felt almost like I was getting ready for a job interview, except this time the position was boyfriend, and the board was her parents. The drive to their house took about 30 minutes. Their place was in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood just outside the city. As I pulled up, the late summer sun was setting, painting the sky with streaks of gold and pink. I parked, sat in the car for a moment, took a deep breath, and told myself, "Be yourself, be respectful, you've got this." When Sophia opened the door, she gave me a quick smile, though it felt more formal than warm. Her parents came forward right away. Her dad shook my hand firmly. Her mom smiled and welcomed me inside. For a brief moment, I thought, Maybe this will go better than I imagined. We chatted in the living room while Sophia and her mom went to finish things in the kitchen. Her dad asked about my job, my hobbies, and where I saw myself in a few years. I answered honestly, careful to keep my tone relaxed. When her mom called us to the table, everything looked perfect. A roast chicken in the center, bowls of vegetables, fresh bread still warm from the oven. As we began eating, conversation flowed easily. Her dad asked more questions about my work. I could feel him trying to get a sense of who I was. I didn't mind. It made sense he'd want to know the man his daughter was dating. But somewhere between the second helping of potatoes and the start of dessert, the night began to shift. Her mom said something in Spanish, and the whole table burst out laughing, everyone except me. I understood every word, but I kept my head down, pretending I didn't. It wasn't just a harmless joke. It was about me, my job, my worth, and my future with their daughter. And it was only the beginning. I kept my face neutral, my fork moving, as if I didn't catch the meaning. Her mother's voice had been warm just seconds earlier, asking about the chicken seasoning. But in Spanish, her words cut deep. His job couldn't support a family, let alone my daughter. Her father chimed in, still in Spanish. Of all the men Sophia has brought home, he looks like he has the least ambition. The laugh that followed wasn't polite, it was sharp, almost proud. And then Sophia joined in. She leaned back in her chair and, with a smirk, told them she was just managing me until she found someone better. That one hit different. I could feel the warmth in my chest shift to something else, something heavier. My mind was spinning, but I kept my head down, nodding as if I was simply enjoying my food. The roasted chicken tasted fine, but my stomach was starting to knot. Then her mother, almost playfully, turned to Sophia and asked, still in Spanish, "Are you sure he doesn't understand what we're saying?" Sophia laughed, a laugh I had heard 100 times, but never like this. "He's too stupid to know what we're talking about," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. Her mother smiled, then switched back to English, asking me sweetly, "Are you enjoying the food, Ethan?" I looked up at her, matched her smile, and said, "Yes, ma'am. It's delicious, thank you." My tone was calm, but inside, I was memorizing every word, every glance, every laugh. For the rest of the dinner, they kept the insults flowing in Spanish between bites of food and sips of wine. They thought they were clever. They thought they were safe. But I'd already decided exactly how the night was going to end. Dessert came out. A homemade flan that looked like it belonged on a magazine cover. The sweet smell of caramel filled the air as Sophia's mom set a slice in front of me. The rest of the table kept chatting in Spanish, tossing out more little jabs like I wasn't even there. I took a slow bite, set my fork down, and looked around the table. My heart was steady, my mind crystal clear. If I was going to speak, I was going to make it count. I leaned back slightly and, in clear, deliberate Spanish, said, "Thank you for having me this evening. The food was wonderful." The room froze. Her father stopped mid-chew, his eyes locking on me. Her mother's smile faltered, her brows knitting together. And Sophia went pale, the color draining from her face like someone had flipped a switch. I continued, still in Spanish, my voice calm but firm. "I understood everything you've said tonight. Every insult, every joke, every time you assumed I was too stupid to follow along." Silence. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. I stood, placed my napkin neatly on the table, and slid my chair back without rushing. "You've made it clear what you think of me," I said, now in English, "so I'll make it clear where I stand. I don't stay where I'm not respected." I reached for my coat, nodded politely to each of them, and walked out the front door into the cool night air. My car was parked under a street lamp, and as I unlocked it, I could feel my chest lighten. For the first time that evening, I was breathing freely. They thought they'd embarrassed me, but I had just left them with something they wouldn't forget anytime soon. By the time I pulled into my driveway that night, my phone was lit up like a Christmas tree. 10 missed calls from Sophia, a handful of texts, and 2 voicemails. I didn't even listen to them. I set the phone face down on the kitchen counter and let the silence settle in. I wasn't angry in the way people expect, no shouting, no pacing. Instead, it was a calm I hadn't felt in months, a strange sort of relief. I had finally seen the truth without any filter, and there was no going back. The next morning, a knock at my door pulled me from half-sleep. I already knew who it was. Sure enough, when I opened it, Sophia stood there, hair pulled back, wearing yesterday's jacket, eyes a mix of exhaustion and irritation. "Why are you ignoring me?" she demanded, stepping forward like she was going to walk right in. "I blocked the doorway, because I don't owe you anything," I said flatly. Her expression twisted into something between disbelief and frustration. "You're overreacting. It was just a joke. My family jokes like that all the time. You're taking it too seriously." I kept my voice even. "Some things you don't joke about. Not to someone you claim to care about. And certainly not in front of your family." She tried to smile, to soften her tone. "Come on, Ethan. You're really going to throw away 3 years over one dinner?" I stepped outside, closing the door behind me so she couldn't push past. 3 years ended the moment you laughed with them. You didn't defend me. You joined in. She crossed her arms, the defensive look returning. "You're being too sensitive. If you can't handle my family's humor, maybe we aren't right for each other." I nodded once. "You're right about one thing. We aren't right for each other." The words seemed to hit her harder than she expected. She opened her mouth like she was about to argue, but I'd already turned and gone back inside. Within an hour, the calls started again, this time mixed with angry texts. First it was guilt-tripping, then name-calling, then blaming me for ruining everything. I didn't reply. That afternoon, I blocked her number, her social media, and every way she could reach me. I didn't do it to punish her. I did it to protect myself. Walking away wasn't easy, but staying, that would have cost me my self-respect. And that price was too high. The first few days after I cut Sophia off were heavier than I expected. Not because I doubted my decision, but because it's hard to erase 3 years of memories overnight. The quiet in my apartment was different now. It wasn't the peaceful kind I'd once enjoyed. It was the kind that reminds you someone used to be there. I found myself replaying certain moments, wondering if there had been signs I missed. Maybe the way she sometimes joked at my expense in front of friends. Or how she rarely asked about my work unless it tied into her own plans. Looking back, it all seemed connected, like threads leading to that dinner table. The messages didn't stop right away. Even though I had blocked her number, Sophia found ways. Emails from different addresses. Messages through mutual friends. At first, they were a mix of apologies and excuses. "I didn't mean it like that. You know how my family is. We were just having fun." But as I ignored them, they turned sharp. "You're throwing away everything for nothing. You'll never find someone who puts up with you like I did." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Every time I thought about responding, I remembered the look on her face when she laughed with them, that small, satisfied smile as if she was proving a point at my expense. By the end of the week, the outreach stopped. The silence felt strange at first, but then it started to feel lighter. I noticed I was sleeping better. I was focusing more at work. My evenings weren't spent waiting for a text or wondering why one hadn't come. Friends started inviting me out again, and I said yes. I joined a weekend hiking group, something I'd been meaning to try for months. The air in the mountains felt clean in a way I hadn't realized I needed. I wasn't over everything, not yet, but I could feel the weight shifting, and I knew I was walking in the right direction. As the weeks passed, I began to notice something unexpected. Peace didn't just mean quiet, it meant clarity. Without Sophia's voice in my ear, without the push and pull of a relationship that had turned into a test I never agreed to take, I could hear my own thoughts again. I started spending my evenings cooking instead of ordering takeout. I picked up books I'd been meaning to read for years. I called my parents more often, just to talk. Somewhere in all that stillness, I realized how much I had neglected myself trying to keep something alive that should have ended long before that dinner. I wasn't bitter. If anything, I was grateful the truth had come out in a way I couldn't ignore. Had that night gone differently, Had they smiled through gritted teeth instead of mocking me, I might have kept drifting along, believing everything was fine. Sometimes the most painful moments are the ones that save you. One Sunday afternoon, I sat on my porch with a cup of coffee, watching the sun dip behind the rooftops. A thought came to me, not a regret, but a recognition. Self-respect is non-negotiable. You can compromise on dinner plans, weekend trips, even where you'll live, but you can't compromise on dignity. Once it's gone, it doesn't come back. I know some people might say I should have given her another chance. Others might argue I should have confronted her family right there at the table instead of waiting until dessert. But here's the thing. There's no single right way to stand up for yourself. You do it in the way that lets you walk away without wondering later if you did the right thing. That night, I walked away knowing I'd made the only choice that would let me sleep with a clear conscience. So now I'll leave you with this. If you were sitting at that table, hearing every word they thought you didn't understand, what would you have done?